Thank you. Thank you for being here, Mr. Warren. My first question is directed to you. In Nanticoke, which is a town just a few minutes away from where I live, there's a steel mill company called Stilco that employs thousands of workers and drives our local economy. These are the same workers that are suffering and battling unjustified U.S. tariffs. Now with the $1 billion taxpayer-funded ferry contract being handed to a Chinese state yard, it feels like a slap in the face from the Liberal Party. So, Mr. Warren, could the Canadian steel producers like Stilco have supplied the steel required for these ferries if these ferries had been built in Canada?
There's definitely steel producers in Canada that can produce it. The Nanticoke, what we call the lake operation, I'm not sure. I know Algoma that is in big trouble and on their knees right now. Just it's so fragile in the Soo. They have a history of doing it. The other thing we need support with, whatever steel, I think most steel manufacturers could do it. But to do a one-off is difficult. We need a commitment and maybe investment in technology to change the process so we can do it. But my answer to your question is yes, that steel for those ships could have been provided by Canadian producers.
Thank you for that answer. Now, you spoke about the economic activity in your opening. Could you expand on things like including the fabrication, the transport, the downstream supply chains? Did Canada forfeit? What level of this did Canada forfeit by sending these jobs offshore?
Well, I think that's such an important question because it forfeited many jobs. I can't list them all, but the supply chain is just as important as for argument's sake, the steel itself, the ship itself. There is many jobs, many communities that, something like the auto industry, quite frankly, has so many other links in Canada, if we do it right, that many communities, many workers can benefit from shipbuilding through the supply chain. Meg, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
I think that's essentially it. Is that we do we do lose out on those jobs, and so that's the importance of having a bold industrial strategy where we're not going to lose out on these because we've lost that capacity or we haven't maintained it or built it, and so it needs to be brought into that larger capacity and looking beyond just defense and looking to for commercial ships and ferries and things like that as well.
So it's fair to say that Canada lost thousands of unionized jobs for steelworkers that would have been related to this contract. Now, given that some of your very union members would have paid taxes that went to this billion-dollar contract that was doled out by the CIB and that was not, and which the Liberal Party did not intervene to stop it, do you believe that the BC Ferries and the CIB could have structured the loan procurement rules to require Canadian steel content and Canadian jobs, ensuring that the domestic jobs and industrial capacity is supported rather than going to our competitors?
Yes, I think that is exactly what could have been done and should have been done. And to your original point, when we just race to the bottom for the cheapest price, what we really do lose is the taxpayer base. A lot of these jobs are good jobs, raise a family, perhaps own a home, retire in dignity. And when that work isn't provided to Canadians, we lose the tax base. We lose the tax base for hospitals, education, infrastructure. So you got to look at more than the bottom line as we move forward.
And it's not just to this generation that we're losing. This is the loss of generational capacity and opportunity to strengthen our industry and shipbuilding industry. And this opportunity was effectively handed to the Chinese-owned shipyard. Can you speak about the loss of generational capacity?
Oh, absolutely. And I think Eric McNeely mentioned it too. It's generational in terms of, especially in the steel industry, we have many generations in it. And in many of our, whether it be mining or other sectors, industrial sectors, it's passed down or it's generational. And again, in this here economy and with the tariff threat, it's so important we do everything for our future generations. One of the first steps we can do is protect our domestic market, create a domestic market where we don't have it. And the biggest point that Eric made, I believe, is, and even Meg made it, is when these skills leave, when these industries leave, most of them aren't coming back. We've lost it for the rest of, generations to come.
Oh, that's so sad. Very, very sad for Canada. So we have an infrastructure bank in Canada, and Section 3 mandates and requires that investments generate social and economic benefit for Canadians. In your opinion, does $1 billion taxpayer-funded loan to China for these ferries exclude Canadian workers and supply benefits? And would you say that that mandate was reached in providing economic and social benefit to Canada?
It was a complete failure. What could have been done, and not only set up for the first, I think, 2 to 4 ships, there's another 14 coming. We could have invested in the infrastructure where we were lack it to do it ourselves and provided good paying jobs for tax base and our communities. It was a debacle, as I said, a failure.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lewis.